Bell him, or my money walks. It will be handled. Maybe I'll tip you over. Let him go. You'd punish my son for protecting a disabled child? The policy was broken. No, your sense of justice is broken. When money rules in a learning institution and the highest authority is willing to compromise, then justice suffers, even for a 7-year-old kid. Sit back and watch this story. The clock in Mr. Fabian's modestly furnished office read a few minutes past 8. Outside, the school compound of St. Dominic Academy lay quiet under the fading evening light. Mr. Fabian leaned back in his chair, phone pressed to his ear, his tone measured and persuasive. Mr. Augustine, good evening, sir, he began smoothly. I trust your day has been productive. On the other end, Mr. Augustine's deep, confident voice responded, Fabian, always calling at strategic times. What's this about? Mr. Fabian smiled faintly. Well, sir, there's a new project we've been planning, something that will benefit the students greatly. A fully equipped sports center for their physical activities. The total estimate is about 7 million naira. The school intend to host a fundraising program in the coming week. However, I thought to speak with you about it first. A sports center? Mr. Augustine chuckled. You principals always have new projects lined up. Tell me, Fabian, why should I care so much about this project and commit a sizable money to it? Leaning forward, Mr. Fabian's tone softened, almost coaxing. Because, sir, you've always been the school's greatest supporter. This center will not only raise our standard, but also give your son, Terry, and his peers top-class facilities. Your contribution will be recognized permanently. There was a pause, followed by Mr. Augustine's voice swelling with pride. Recognized? Fabian, you know I'm already the major donor to half the things in that school. The library, the renovated assembly hall, the new school bus, all me. People know the Augustine name. Exactly, sir, Fabian interjected eagerly. And this project will only cement that legacy. Imagine the plaque reading, donated by Mr. Augustine. Future parents will see it. Your generosity will be talked about for years. Mr. Augustine exhaled dramatically. 7 million, you say? That's a lot of money. I can't take on the whole thing, but I'll see what I can do. Of course, sir, any substantial contribution will make a difference, Fabian assured. Another brief silence. Then Mr. Augustine's decisive tone came through. All right, Fabian, I'll donate 2.5 million naira. That's as much as I can do. The rest find some other eager parents. A grin spread across Mr. Fabian's face. Sir, that is extremely generous. The school will be deeply grateful. I'll personally ensure you get the recognition you deserve. You'd better, Augustine said with a smirk in his voice. All right then, I'll have my secretary arrange the transfer in due time. Thank you, sir. You've truly made my evening, Fabian replied warmly. As the call ended, Mr. Fabian set the phone down, his mind already calculating how to present the news to the school board and how much of the funds might quietly pass through his own hands. The late morning sun streamed through the half-open windows, casting golden rectangles on the tiled floor of the classroom. 12 children sat in neatly arranged desks, their exercise books open, pencils poised. Among them were Oliver and Terry, sitting at opposite ends of the room. At the front stood Miss Kate, chalk in hand, her warm smile balanced with the firm posture of a teacher who meant business. All right, class, she said, turning to the blackboard where a few simple algebraic expressions were written. We're going to practice solving these together. I'll call you one by one to the board. No pressure, just do your best. The first student, a shy girl named Amanda, shuffled to the front. She stared at the equation, frowning slightly, before writing her answer. Almost correct, Miss Kate encouraged, pointing out the small mistake. From his seat, Terry leaned back, smirking. Almost isn't correct, he muttered loudly enough for a few classmates to hear. A ripple of quiet laughter followed. Miss Kate's eyes narrowed slightly. Terry, that's not helpful. We support each other here. Understood? Yes, ma'am, Terry replied, but the smirk lingered. One by one, the students took their turns. Some solved the problems quickly, others hesitated, erasing and rewriting. Each time someone stumbled, Terry found a way to jab. Better luck next time, he teased at one boy. Did you forget your brain at home? He whispered to another. A few children shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Terry, Miss Kate said again, her voice calm but firmer this time. Enough. Focus on your work. Yes, ma'am, he said again, eyes darting mischievously to the next child at the board. When Oliver's turn came, he walked up confidently, wrote the correct answer in one swift motion, and returned to his seat without a word. Terry's smirk faltered for a moment, But when the next student made an error, he couldn't resist snickering. That was it for Miss Kate. She set the chalk down with a sharp tap. "Terry," she said, her tone now unmistakably stern, "your behavior is unacceptable. This is a learning space, not a place for mockery. If you cannot encourage your classmates, you will remain silent. Is that clear?" The room went still. Terry's eyes dropped to his desk, his posture stiff. "Yes, ma'am," he muttered, the defiance drained from his voice. Miss Kate held his gaze for a moment longer before resuming the lesson, the quiet focus in the room restored. Later in the evening at home, Oliver sat at his study desk, pencil in hand, while his father, Mr. Ekong, leaned over the arithmetic assignment spread before them. "All right, son," Mr. Ekong said, pointing at the next problem. "Let's tackle this one carefully. Remember, slow and steady." Oliver frowned slightly, tapping the eraser of his pencil against the page. "I think I know, but I'm not sure." "That's fine," his father encouraged. "Think it through, step by step. Mistakes are part of learning." Just then the door opened and Mrs. Ekong stepped in, her smile warm. "Dinner is ready," she announced, the aroma of stew and rice drifting into the room. Oliver's eyes lit up. "Dad, I'm hungry. Can we eat first?" Mr. Ekong shook his head gently. "Let's finish this first, Oliver. It's not a good habit to leave work half done. Once you finish, you'll enjoy your meal even more." Oliver hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, Dad." "That's my boy," Mr. Ekong said, ruffling his son's hair. "Now let's solve this together." They bent over the workbook, voices low as they worked through the remaining problems. With each solved question, Oliver's confidence grew, and by the time they wrote the final answer, he was grinning. "All done," Oliver said proudly. "Excellent," his father replied, closing the book. "Now let's go enjoy that dinner." Together, they left the bedroom, the sound of their footsteps blending with the inviting clink of plates from the dining table. It was dismissal time, and the voice of the kids talking outside as they left the school compound almost filled Mr. Fabian's office. As he leaned over his desk, phone pressed to his ear, his brow furrowed in concentration. On the other end, the contractor in charge of the new sports center project was listing itemized costs. "7 million is too steep," Mr. Fabian said, his voice smooth but firm. "We need to make this work without straining the school's budget." The contractor's tone was pragmatic. "Principal Fabian, quality materials and skilled labor don't come cheap, but I can see if there's a way to cut some non-essentials." "That's all I'm asking," Fabian replied. "Trim where we can, but keep it presentable. Remember, the opening will be a big deal. Parents, donors, press." There was a pause as the contractor calculated. "If we adjust the seating area and opt for a simpler roofing design, I can bring it down to 5.6 million. Mr. Fabian allowed a small smile. "Now we're talking. That's a reasonable figure. Let's proceed with that." "All right, I'll send over the revised proposal by tomorrow," the contractor confirmed. Just then, Fabian's phone emitted a soft beep, another call coming through. He glanced at the screen. "Mr. Augustin." "Hold on a moment," Fabian said quickly. "I've got another call coming in." The contractor's voice was faint in his ear. "No problem, sir. We'll speak later." Fabian ended the contractor's call, straightened in his chair, and cleared his throat before answering. "Mr. Augustine, good evening, sir," he greeted, his tone instantly warmer, the wheels in his mind already turning as he wondered what this call might bring. The voice on the other end was sharp and unyielding. "Fabian, I am not happy. My son came home today with a story that doesn't sit well with me. Apparently, a certain teacher decided to scold him in front of the class. Miss Kate, is it?" Fabian hesitated. "Yes, sir. I believe she was conducting a—" "I don't care what she was conducting," Augustine cut in, his tone rising. "Terry told me he was only reacting to classmates who couldn't get their answers right. That is not his fault. If other children can't grasp knowledge quickly, that's their problem. My boy is intelligent, one of the best in his class. He should not be treated the same as those lagging behind." Fabian kept silent, knowing better than to interrupt when Augustine was in full stride. Instead of recognizing his brilliance, this teacher embarrasses him? No, I won't have it. I want her reprimanded immediately. Make it clear that no one, and I mean no one, talks to my son anyhow. Do you understand me? "Sir, I'm sure Miss Kate meant—" "I'm not interested in her intentions, Fabian," Augustine snapped. "Remember, I've been one of your biggest donors for years. The library, the assembly hall, the bus, my money. I expect my son to be protected in that school. If he's wrong, I'll handle it at home. In school, he should be above such nonsense." Fabian exhaled slowly, his mind weighing the cost of resistance. The school's reliance on Augustine's generosity was undeniable. I understand, sir. I'll speak to Miss Kate first thing tomorrow and handle the matter. Good, Augustine said, his tone softening only slightly. I'm counting on you, Fabian. You can, Fabian assured. Consider it done. The call ended, leaving Fabian staring at his desk, the weight of compromise settling heavily on his shoulders. He knew Miss Kate had only been doing her job, but in a school where money often outweighed fairness, some battles were lost before they began. The next day, Mr. Fabian summoned Miss Kate into her office even before the class started. Papers were neatly stacked on his desk, but his sharp tone cut through the quiet as Miss Kate stood across from him, arms loosely folded. Miss Kate, Fabian began, I need you to be more careful about how you treat students in your class. She blinked, taken aback. Careful? Sir, I'm not sure I understand. Isn't it my job to correct students when they misbehave or disrupt lessons? Fabian avoided her direct gaze, shuffling a file. Your job is to teach, yes, but with caution. We don't want unnecessary incidents. Confusion knitted her brow. Incidents? This is very sudden. May I ask what brought this on? His eyes flicked up briefly, then back to his desk. Just take the advice, Miss Kate. Treat all your students gently. Her voice sharpened slightly. Does this have anything to do with Terry? Fabian's head snapped up. Miss Kate, I'm asking you to follow instructions. That's all. She stood her ground. Sir, I believe I know what this is about. Yesterday, Terry was mocking other children during the algebra exercise, and I cautioned him several times. If this is your way of telling me not to correct him because of who his father is, I can't agree to that. I will not apply different standards for different students. His jaw tightened. Miss Kate, watch yourself. I don't want complaints from parents about how you treat their children. I won't warn you twice. Her expression hardened, but she said nothing, refusing to break eye contact. I mean it, Fabian continued, his voice dropping into a threat. If I get another complaint, I'll have no choice but to review your salary and perhaps your position. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir, she replied evenly, though the tension in her voice was unmistakable. Good, he said curtly, gesturing toward the door. You may go. Miss Kate turned and walked out, her steps measured, her mind already firm in her resolve. She would not allow fear or favoritism to dictate how she taught her class. Back in her classroom that morning, Miss Kate could barely focus on her lessons. The principal's words kept echoing in her head, the injustice of it gnawing at her. She had done nothing wrong and only upheld fairness and respect among her students, and yet she had been treated as though she had crossed some line. That night, after grading a few assignments, she sat on the small sofa in her apartment, phone pressed to her ear. On the other end was her fiancé, Daniel, his voice warm and attentive. You sound tense, he said. Rough day. Miss Kate sighed heavily. You have no idea. Fabian called me into his office to basically warn me for scolding a student. And not just any student, Terry, the principal's untouchable golden boy, because his father practically owns half the school with his donations. The kid now thinks he can taunt other kids and make fun of them during our class practice exercise. Daniel's tone sharpened. What exactly did he say? He told me to be more careful in how I treat my students. Wouldn't give me a real reason, just kept insisting. I asked if it was about Terry he dodged, but I could tell it was all about that boy. That's ridiculous, Daniel replied. You were doing your job. If Terry was making fun of other kids, he needed to be corrected. Exactly, she said, frustration rising in her voice. But apparently, if your father writes big checks to the school, you're above correction. Fabian even threatened my salary and my job if he gets more complaints. It's so unfair, Daniel. There was a pause before Daniel spoke again, his voice steady. You can't let this shake you. You've always been firm but fair. That's what makes you a good teacher. Don't compromise that because of politics. Miss Kate leaned back, closing her eyes. I won't, but it's hard knowing the people above you would rather protect power than do what's right. You've got me, Daniel said reassuringly, and you've got your principles. Hold on to them. She smiled faintly. Thanks. I needed to hear that. They lingered on the call, the quiet reassurance of his voice slowly easing the weight of the day, even if the battle at school was far from over. The day for the fundraising arrived. The school hall buzzed with chatter as more than 50 parents took their seats around neatly arranged tables. The banners announcing the fundraising program hung proudly across the stage, and soft background music played from the speakers. Teachers moved between tables, greeting guests and ensuring everyone felt welcome. At the head table sat Mr. Fabian, smiling broadly as he scanned the room. When the microphone was brought to Mr. Augustine, he rose with the confident air of a man used to commanding attention. His crisp, exotic attire shimmered under the stage lights, drawing admiring glances. He adjusted his sleeves and gave a small bow toward the audience and began. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice rich and self-assured. "I must first commend the school management for always striving to give our children the very best. I have been a supporter of this great institution for years, and my son Terry is a living testament to the quality of education here." There was a murmur of agreement from the crowd. Augustine smiled, savoring the attention. "You all know," he continued, "that I believe in rewarding excellence. Terry works hard and excels, and as a father, it is my duty to support the environment that shapes him. Tonight, I am not just here to speak, I am here to act." He paused deliberately, then spread his arms slightly in a grand gesture. "I will be donating 2.5 million naira toward the development of our new sports center." Applause erupted, accompanied by cheers from a few tables. Augustine tilted his head modestly, though the satisfaction in his eyes betrayed his pride. After him, other parents began stepping forward. One donated 500,000 naira, another 300,000. Others gave what they could, amounts ranging from 100,000 to several hundred thousand. The room filled with a warm, collective spirit of giving. By the end of the evening, with Augustine's initial pledge included, they had raised a total of 7.7 million naira. Mr. Fabian, standing at the podium to close the program, beamed as he thanked the parents for their generosity, the numbers already turning over in his mind as he imagined the school's next big steps and what will silently flow into his pocket. The fundraising program had barely ended when Miss Kate made her way to the principal's office. The echo of applause from the hall still lingered in the corridors, but her mind was focused and resolute. She knocked once before stepping in. Mr. Fabian looked up from the stack of pledge forms on his desk. "Miss Kate, what brings you here at this hour?" She stood tall, meeting his gaze. "Sir, I wanted to speak to you privately. I cannot work efficiently in an environment where my capabilities are clipped, especially in ways that are unfair." Fabian leaned back in his chair, his expression neutral. "You have your job, Miss Kate, and you have my instructions. That is the environment we operate in." "That's the problem," she replied firmly. "Your instructions prevent me from doing my job properly. I'm here to guide and discipline my students when necessary, without bias. But when I'm told to handle certain students differently because of who their parents are, it undermines my role as a teacher in the integrity of the classroom." He gave a small, dismissive shrug. "Whether you agree or not, you must work within the confines of my directives. That's how the system works." Her jaw tightened. "So you're saying fairness doesn't matter here, only appeasing those who give the most money?" "I'm saying you will follow my lead," Fabian said, his tone sharpening. Miss Kate exhaled slowly, her decision crystallizing. "In that case, I can't continue here. I refuse to compromise my principles for the sake of politics. Consider this my resignation." Fabian's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," she said quietly, "but at least I'll be able to live with it." Without another word, she placed a neatly folded resignation letter on his desk, turned, and walked out of the office. When the school resumed the next day, and the students settled into their seats, murmurs filling the air, Oliver sat quietly at his desk, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. The door opened, and in walked Mr. Fabian, his polished shoes clicking softly against the tiled floor. He smiled briefly at the class, his hands clasped behind his back. "Good morning, pupils," he began. "I have an important announcement to make. As you may have noticed, Miss Kate is not here today, and that is because she is no longer with us. She has resigned for personal reasons, and we wish her all the best in her next career." The students exchanged curious glances, a few whispering to one another. Fabian's expression remained calm, concealing any hint of the tension that had led to her departure. "Now," he continued, gesturing toward the door, "I'd like to introduce your new class teacher." A tall man in a neatly pressed shirt and tie stepped into the room. His face bore a confident smile, and he nodded politely to the students. "This is Mr. Cletus. He will be taking over your lessons from today onward." "Good morning, everyone," Mr. Cletus said warmly. "I'm looking forward to getting to know each of you and helping you succeed." The room quieted as Fabian gave a final nod. "I expect you all to give Mr. Cletus the same respect and cooperation you showed Miss Kate. That will be all for now." With that, he turned and left, leaving Mr. Cletus to face his new class. 2 weeks had passed, and the school activities continued in its normalcy. This afternoon, the sun cast long shadows across the school playground, where children laughed and played in small groups. Near the edge of the basketball court, Yemi, a quiet boy in a wheelchair, was making his way toward the shade of a large mango tree. His path was suddenly blocked by Terry, who stood with his arms folded and a smug grin on his face. "Where do you think you're going?" Terry taunted, stepping left and right to block every attempt Yemi made to pass. "Please, Terry, move out of the way," Yemi said, his voice calm but strained. Terry leaned forward, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Or what? You gonna run me over? Maybe I'll just tip you out of that chair so you can see what it's like to crawl." Yemi's eyes widened in shock. "Don't say that." But Terry wasn't done. He gave the wheelchair a slight shove, making it roll back an inch. "You're too slow, Yemi. Maybe you don't belong on this playground." A few kids nearby watched nervously, but didn't step in until Oliver, who had been playing soccer a short distance away, noticed the scene. He jogged over, frowning. "Terry, leave him alone," Oliver said firmly. Terry's smirk faded into irritation. "Mind your business, Oliver. This is between me and him." "It became my business the moment you started bullying him," Oliver replied, stepping closer. Terry's eyes narrowed, and in a sudden burst of aggression, he grabbed Yemi's wheelchair handles and tried to push it over. "I said he doesn't belong here." Before the chair could tip, Oliver lunged forward, yanking Terry's hands away and shoving him back with enough force to break his grip. Yemi's chair rocked but stayed upright. Terry stumbled, lost his balance, and fell hard to the ground. The sharp scrape of skin against the rough cement was followed by his loud cry. He clutched his elbow, a small streak of blood visible. The nearby children gasped. Oliver stood his ground, breathing heavily, but keeping his gaze locked on Terry. "You're not hurting him. Not while I'm here." Yemi, still gripping his wheels, looked between the two boys. "Thank you, Oliver," he said quietly. But Terry only glared up from the ground, his face twisted in a mix of pain and humiliation, tears welling in his eyes as the playground's murmurs grew louder. Inside his bustling supermarket, Mr. Ekong stood behind the counter, reviewing inventory notes with one of his assistants. Customers moved between the aisles, the soft hum of conversation blending with the faint sound of a radio playing in the background. His phone vibrated on the countertop. He glanced at the screen. Mr. Fabian, principal. His brow furrowed as he answered. "Good afternoon, Principal Fabian. Is everything all right?" The voice on the other end was urgent. "Mr. Ekong, I need you to come to the school immediately. It's a serious matter regarding your son. Please, as soon as you can." Mr. Ekong straightened, the concern in Fabian's tone sending a ripple of unease through him. "I'll be there right away." Ending the call, he quickly dialed his wife. "Sweetheart, I just got a call from the principal. Something's happened at school. I'm heading there now." Her voice tightened. "Is Oliver all right?" "I don't know yet," he admitted, already moving toward the door. "I'll find out and call you as soon as I can." He turned to his assistant, handing over the clipboard. "Chinadu, you're in charge until I get back. Keep an eye on the deliveries and make sure the front register runs smoothly." "Yes, sir," Chinadu replied, taking the clipboard. Without wasting another moment, Mr. Ekong grabbed his car keys, stepped outside, and slid into his sedan. The engine roared to life, and he pulled out of the parking lot, the city's traffic parting slowly as he made his way toward the school, his mind racing with questions and possibilities. It was still the same afternoon, only hours after the incident in the playground, when the door to the principal's office flew open. The blinds were half closed, letting in narrow slits of golden light that cut across the polished desk. Mr. Augustine strode in, his face flushed with fury, his voice booming so loudly it carried down the hall. "This is unacceptable, Fabian. My son is injured, and you're sitting here, calm as if it's nothing. I want the child who did this expelled immediately today." Fabian leaned back slightly, forcing a polite smile, though his grip on his pen tightened. He could already feel a dull ache building in his temples. "Mr. Augustine, I understand your concern, but let's not rush to—" "Don't tell me not to rush," Augustine barked, slamming his palm on the desk so hard the pen jarred from Fabian's hand. "Your school policy is clear. A student is not allowed to physically touch or push another student when they are quarreling or in disagreement. Isn't that what it says? The penalty ranges from a week's suspension to expulsion. This is clear-cut. My boy was pushed to the ground and injured. I demand expulsion." Fabian's fingers began to tap slowly on the desk, betraying his unease. "I assure you the matter will be handled appropriately. But expulsion is an extreme measure. We should consider—" "I don't care about circumstances. Augustine snapped, stepping closer so their eyes locked. I don't care who started it or why. That student broke your policy. If you don't act, Terry leaves this school today, and my 2.5 million naira donation goes with him. That last sentence landed like a hammer blow. Fabian's mind spun not just the official donation, but the quiet side monies that had a way of slipping into his own pocket when certain projects passed through his desk. If Augustine pulled out, those streams would dry up instantly. Mr. Augustine, please. Fabian tried, but the man cut him off again. No, Augustine said, jabbing a finger toward him. You know how much I've given to this school. You know the projects I've bankrolled. Don't think I won't walk away and take every kobo of future support with me. I'm not negotiating. Either that student is expelled or my son is gone. The room fell into a tense silence, the ticking wall clock suddenly loud in Fabian's ears. He avoided Augustine's piercing glare, staring at the desk instead, mind racing. You've heard me, Fabian, Augustine said at last, straightening his jacket and adjusting his cufflinks. I'll be expecting your decision. Without waiting for a reply, he turned sharply, the door swinging open and slamming shut behind him, leaving Fabian staring at the empty space he'd left, the weight of the threat pressing heavily on him. Along the school corridors, Mr. Ekong walked briskly toward the principal's office, concern etched on his face. As he turned a corner, he nearly bumped into a man storming past in the opposite direction. The man's jaw was tight, his strides sharp with barely contained anger. Though they didn't know each other, Mr. Ekong noted the man's demeanor, someone clearly leaving an unpleasant conversation. When he stepped into the principal's office, Mr. Fabian rose from behind his desk, wearing a measured expression. Mr. Ekong, thank you for coming so quickly. Please, have a seat. I'd prefer you tell me what this is about, Ekong said, remaining standing. Fabian cleared his throat. Your son, Oliver, has breached our school policy forbidding students from physical contact or pushing during quarrels or disagreements. He pushed and injured a classmate earlier today. According to our rules, the penalty ranges from 1 week's suspension to expulsion. Given the situation, we are considering a 3-week suspension. Mr. Ekong's brow furrowed. And what exactly was the disagreement about? My son is not one to simply push someone without reason. Fabian waved a hand dismissively. Mr. Ekong, the rules are clear. Physical contact in a disagreement is unacceptable. I'm not disputing the rule, Ekong interrupted, his tone calm but firm. I'm saying the context matters. If my son acted in defense of himself or someone else, that changes how we should view this. Fabian's eyes flickered away. No further inquiry is necessary. The fact remains that Oliver initiated physical contact. That's the breach, and that's what matters. Ekong's wife's lips pressed into a thin line. He could feel a current of frustration rising, but he held his composure. So you're telling me you're unwilling to dig deeper, to speak to other students, to find out what actually happened? There's no need, Fabian replied, leaning back in his chair with finality. The policy was broken. For a moment, the office was silent. Then Mr. Ekong spoke, his voice even but charged with meaning. Very well. Please bring my son to me. I want to hear what he has to say. Fabian gave a small nod, avoiding his eyes, and reached for the intercom. Few minutes later, Oliver stepped into the principal's office, his eyes flicking nervously between his father and Mr. Fabian. Mr. Ekong, seated beside him, rested a firm but reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. His gaze was steady, a mixture of concern and authority. Oliver, he said in a calm yet cautionary tone, tell me exactly what happened today. Why did you push your classmate? Oliver shifted his weight, his voice quiet but clear. Dad, Terry. His name is Terry. He was blocking Yemi's path. Yemi's in a wheelchair, and he couldn't get past. Terry kept moving in front of him, laughing. Then he told Yemi he'd push him out of his chair. He grabbed the wheelchair handles and tried to tip him over. Mr. Ekong's brow tightened, but he let his son continue. I told him to stop, but he wouldn't. He started pushing harder, so I pulled his hands away and pushed him back. I didn't mean for him to fall, but he lost his balance and scraped his elbow. I was only trying to protect Yemi. Ekong leaned forward, meeting Oliver's gaze directly. Is that the whole truth? Don't hide anything from me. You know I need the full story. That's everything, Oliver replied firmly. I promise, Dad. Mr. Ekong studied him for a moment, seeing the honesty in his eyes. He turned toward Mr. Fabian, his voice calm but edged with steel. Your approach to this is unfair. Would you rather Terry had been allowed to push a disabled child to the ground? Fabian shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding the question. The issue with Yemi is not the concern right now. The concern is about the policy. Oliver breached school policy. That's injustice, Ekong countered sharply. My son did what every right-thinking human would do. He protected someone vulnerable. That's not misconduct. That's integrity. He did something that, frankly, you seem to lack the courage to admit is the right thing. Fabian's lips tightened. We are trying to teach your son properly, Mr. Ekong. No, Ekong said, leaning forward. You need to reflect on your sense of judgment. You're sending the message that following a rule matters more than protecting a child from harm. Mr. Fabian's composure slipped. His voice hardened as he reached into a folder, pulled out a sheet of paper, scribbled quickly on it, and appended his signature. Then he pushed it across the desk. This is the letter detailing Oliver's 3-week suspension. Ekong took the letter without looking at it immediately. He turned to his son, his voice steady and warm. Oliver, for standing up for the right thing, even in the face of pressure, you will not see this as punishment. These 3 weeks will be filled with fun. I'm proud of you. Oliver's face softened into a small, relieved smile. His father placed a reassuring hand on his back, guiding him toward the door. As they stepped into the hallway, Mr. Ekong's expression hardened again. Behind the calm front, his mind was already turning. He wasn't going to let Mr. Fabian get away with this injustice. Never. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.